Anthony Ramirez never had a chance, but he did have a prayer. While running and playing in a park near his home in notorious South Central Los Angeles, gang members looking for rivals intentionally gunned him down. Anthony was only 8. When Anthony was shot, his father, Carlos, was working out of town, trying to earn enough money to move the family to a safer neighborhood.
My son, he was just like any other kid, you know. Everybody wanted to hug it. Everybody wanted to be his friends. I'm talking about little kids. The neighbors here, their children used to come and line up outside asking for my son to go spend the night, you know, in their houses. He told me, one day he came to me and said, "Dad, I have an idea." He goes, I'm never going to use drugs and I'm never going to smoke. I want to be smart because I want to be a pilot. He wanted to be an Air Force pilot.
In little Anthony's hands were 2 sticks that he had tied together to make a cross. You see, Anthony and his sister Liz attended the mobile children's church services held only a stone's throw from where he died. The services are held by Dream Center Children's pastor Julian Torres, a man who himself grew up in an equally dangerous Los Angeles neighborhood.
Last Thursday, April the 11th, Anthony Ramirez was playing in the park. It's about 7:30. It was still light out. He just having a good time. He lives across the street from the park. Just there having fun running through the park. When a group of teens, 18 they say, came through, guns loaded, ready to do some damage, looking for some rival gang members that hang out at the park there sometimes. Anthony just happened to be running through, caught their eye. They thought maybe he was involved. They thought maybe he was a part and was running away from them. They pointed the gun right at him and pulled the trigger. He was shot in the chest, pretty much died on the spot there, on the grass. The following day, we went to do a program there. We were told that the kids said they didn't want to go to the park, that a little boy had been killed there. And that's when we found out about it. We went to the park. We sat with the kids. We cried with them. We prayed with them. We just loved on them because that's what they needed. And that's what we needed to do. Anthony's gone, but his memory lives in our hearts.
He was a very good student. You know, as a father, what can I say? You know, the best. But people from here that we don't even know, you know, they just come and say, you know, we feel what you feel, you know, because your son was a very good kid.
Sarah came twice a week to help host the Christian programs that Anthony attended, and after a special visit to see Anthony, she left the park to attend a Dream Center service only an hour before Anthony was killed.
Being the site pastor at 25th and Trinity is both an honor and a privilege because I do get the rare opportunity to be involved in everybody's lives, but it both includes the joy and the sorrow, and going through this tragedy with them has opened up many doors. And though my heart has been broken for the family, I know that because of Anthony's life, a lot of people's lives are going to be changed. It's the end of his life, but it's the beginning of many others.
Christy is another who spends her life ministering to children who live in explosive neighborhoods.
Well, attending the funeral of an 8-year-old boy really makes you reflect on what you're doing and what your life is really all about. And I've been going out to 25th and Trinity for almost a year and a half now, and I've never felt the reverence that I do today for what I'm doing. Just thinking about the 18-year-old boys that were responsible for taking his life, and that we started ministering at 25th and Trinity 5 years ago. More than likely, they were a little bit too old to start coming to our programs at that time, and we missed out on ministering to that generation in that area. If they had been able to come to our programs and hear about the love of God, and just thinking about how we taught the 10 Commandments last semester, and that thou shalt not murder, and the reasons why and the effects that murder has on not only your own life, but on the community and families that are affected when they lose someone. And the day after Anthony was murdered, we went out and spoke about the protection of God. The main point of the whole thing was that Jesus is my protector, and to be able to go out and to minister to the kids that God can save them from incidents like this, that they'll pray in the morning and seek God for His wisdom for their lives. And then today we have the opportunity to go out, and I don't think it's any coincidence that we're ministering to the children that they need to love each other, and not only love each other that are good to them, but also their enemies. And that's the whole point in our message today. We have the opportunity to go into that community and to teach kids that there's a better life out there than the gangs that are so after their souls. They really try hard to get these kids to come in and to feel a part of what they're doing, so that their neighborhood has their name and their mark all over it. But you know what? We are being able to go in there and we're teaching the kids that God has a better destiny for them. He has a purpose for them, and the main purpose is just to love each other as they love Him.
The sad thing is that all these plans that he had for his future are gone. Like part of my life is gone, with his death. And the sad thing is that he didn't die, for occasionally. He was killed, and that's very painful. And I gotta live with that the rest of my life. I gotta go to places with my other kids and just thinking that he's not gonna be with us like before. It's very painful. I can't describe, what I feel, because there's no words for this. It's something terrible. I'm crippled for life.
For Dream Center ministers, spreading the gospel is a matter of life and death. Pastor Jay is determined that Anthony not die in vain. The child's death has caused him to rededicate his mission to bring the love of Christ to children like Anthony, and also the 18-year-old gangbanger who came to the park that day with hate in his heart, took aim, and murdered his neighbor.
Metro Kids LA founder Reverend Julian Torres spent much of his young life in an East Los Angeles housing project. Here, life is a mix of danger, dread, and tough decisions. Gangs become an alternate family, violence, the way to handle problems, and drugs, an escape from reality. For the kids who live here, horrible memories are quickly made, and hope is only a word.
Aliso Village, this housing project here, it's kind of housing project I grew up in East Los Angeles. Like this one, it was tore down because of the violence, because of the madness, the chaos. There were shootings all the time when you live in the projects, and there's always that happening. But one particular time there was a shooting, and I went to the door and I opened it. I remember coming out of a door and looking at a girl shot right in front of me, her whole back full of blood. It's just senseless violence, and you grew up seeing life cheap, people being shot, people being stabbed, and people massacring each other. And seeing that not only impacted me, it hurt me. Growing up as a kid, to see that kind of violence, to see that kind of hurt and pain in the neighborhood. And so drugs were always a part of it. And in my home, it was no different. There was drugs, There was PCP in our freezer there with the corn and the meat and the ground beef, and you had little bags of PCP in aluminum foil, or you had Sherms or Super Cools. This is, PCP, you're talking an animal tranquilizer. This stuff was not meant for humans, and yet we're dipping cigarettes into this stuff and smoking it and putting it in our heads. And remember several times we were asleep and the cops would come, 5, 6, 7 cop cars, the SWAT teams just kicking doors in with shotguns and handguns pointed in our faces. And I'm just a kid. They're pulling us out of bed and they got us all on the floor, our whole family, because of crimes and things that were happening in the neighborhood, shootings that were going on almost every weekend. People were being shot and drive-by shootings in our neighborhood. Stuff that you just don't forget as a kid. You're not supposed to see that as a kid, I think. Those are the kind of kids growing up here in Los Angeles, in these hardcore, rough neighborhoods with gangs and drugs all over the place. The gang is like, it's interesting because the gang life offers you a lot of the things that the church offer. There's a real similarity in being a part of the gang. And they become like your family. There's things that you do for the neighborhood. You would give your life for the neighborhood, very much like a Christian would give his life for Christ. He would put his life on the line for Christ. You put your life on the line for your neighborhood, for your homeboys, for the people that you run around with. And how I came to the Lord is interesting. We were on our way to a lake, a few of us guys hanging out. We were partying, we were getting high, and stopped off, got some gas, and some guys from another gang came up to us and started interacting with us a little bit. And before you know it, one of the guys took off, came back with a whole bunch of his friends. One of the guys had a gun. He put the gun right to a friend of mine's head and pulled the trigger. My friend went down on the seat. I was right there, standing right by the car. I seen his head go down, blood just squirting out of the side of his head. And I thought about my life and what was going on. My brother got stabbed. There was just a whole big gang fight right there at the gas station. Not shortly after that, I remember God speaking to me as a young kid. I didn't even know God, wasn't even a Christian, nothing. But I know it was the voice of God. You just know. And God said to me that I would not live to be 20 years of age, that I would die like a dog in the street, like a dog out all alone, that I would be gunned down. But from that situation, the guy gave his life to the Lord. He was in a coma for 2 weeks. A cousin came and ministered to him and shared Christ with him. When he woke up from that coma, prayed with him, he accepted the Lord. It took Anthony, the guy that had been shot, to come back into the neighborhood and talk to us about the Lord and talk to us about God's love. And I began to hear that. And at first I didn't respond, and I said, I don't know if I want to do that. And I went to church with him one day by accident, just happened to take him. Sitting in the balcony, the preacher was preaching. I heard the message. It didn't affect me. I didn't think about it. But when he made a call for people to accept the Lord, raise their hands that needed prayer, I knew that was me. I needed something, and I raised my hand. I went down, didn't want to go down there. Went down there, gave my heart to Jesus, didn't know what I had done, prayed the prayer. Nothing happened in my life. No great fireworks, nothing went off in my spirit other than I knew that I had done something good. But when God got a hold of my life, it changed everything. I began to regularly tutor other students in history and in different subjects. I ended up on the principal's honor court representing the school to outside businesses. So practically, in a practical way, my life began to turn around in school and going to school. I graduated from high school. None of my brothers had ever graduated. The desire to want to go to church and to want to serve God grew in my life. There was a ministry there with kids, working with kids. I was 15 years old when this happened, when I made a decision to serve the Lord. They said, Julian, we need you. We need you to go into this neighborhood, a gang neighborhood. You know this kind of a lifestyle. Can you go in there and bring kids out? We'll give you a bus and a driver, and we'll give you a roster, and we'll offer popcorn balls and ice cream and candy bars, and you'll go out there and just minister to families, minister to these kids, bring them in on buses. We'll have promos and different things we give away to the kids. It's fun. And as I begin to do that, I begin to feel a great sense of purpose and meaning to my life. These kids begin to look up to me, and that was a great motivation for me. When I begin to realize, you know what, I got a plan in all of this. God can use me to help these kids. That purpose, boy, it just lit me up. It just gave me the energy. It gave me the want to continue to grow in the Lord and continue to go to school and continue to do positive things with my life. It was that motivation that I needed. Today, God continues to use me reaching out to kids, Metro Kids, an organization that I helped form almost 11 years ago here in the city of Los Angeles to reach out to kids in some of the most at-risk neighborhoods. Today is reaching almost 5,000 children out on the streets, touching their lives on a weekly basis, teaching them about Christ, reaching out to them. We're reaching 5,000 kids now, but we could be reaching 6,000, and soon we'll be reaching 7,000, and soon we'll not only be here in LA, but matter of fact, we've already started in Mexico. And soon we'll be moving out into other counties here in Southern California. Soon we'll be moving out into other parts, not just California, but other states. Soon we'll be expanding. It's that hope in me. It's the gospel in me that's producing that hope. In and of myself, I don't feel like I could accomplish a whole bunch. But when the gospel's in you, that produces that hope. Today my life's fulfilled. God did have a plan for my life. I just needed to come in and line up with Him and walk with Him. Today, kids are being reached, families are being changed, because I was willing to go.
People need the Lord. People need the Lord.